Hello and welcome to Defense India podcast. And before we start this video, please do like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Hello and welcome to another episode of Defense India podcast, the podcast where we discuss matters related to India's internal security. And joining me on the podcast is Vicky Nanajappa, our resident expert on India's internal security. Welcome, Vicky, to the podcast.
Thank you.
And joining us on the podcast for the very first time is Abhinav ji. Abhinav ji is a CEO of a very vast, think tank on India's internal security. He has written books on various matters, and one of the prominent books that he has written is about how the financing of terrorism in Kashmir is done. Thank you, Abhinav ji, for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you.
As the topic we are discussing today is Kashmir, the elections have finally been, announced in Kashmir. The Supreme Court has directed the government. It directed the government saying that the elections should happen in Kashmir, and they will be happening starting from next month. 18th of September is the date when the elections will start in 3 phases. First of all, Abhinav ji, I just want to come to you and ask you a very blunt question. Do you think the situation on ground is okay for Kashmir to get into elections?
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's a pleasure. It's an honor. Well, I must say that, as far as elections are concerned, recently we had the Lok Sabha elections in Kashmir, and Kashmir sent Engineer Rashid to the Lok Sabha. Engineer Rashid is a man convicted in terror financing and open separatist with anti-India credentials with very robust links to Pakistan's ISI and terror machinery ecosystem. So that is a sample of what sentiment is prevailing in Kashmir.
Right.
I feel that situation on the ground is not at all congenial for the elections. There is very acute sense of irritation, resentment, and the coupled with a very strong Islamic extremism and radicalization among the people. Previously, before the abrogation of Article 370, there were still some. The politics was of a different nature. The people had mixed opinions about the different things. But lately, after the abrogation of Article 370, the main trend which is prevalent on the ground is of extreme Islamic extremism. The youth is totally now connected to global Islamist movements like Muslim Brotherhood and Jamaat-e-Islami. Jamaat-e-Islami has developed robust ties with the Muslim Brotherhood and global Islamist movement. The youth, you can see, is heavily under the influence of Turkey. So whatever modern politics or activism also which we see in Kashmir, that is basically coming under the garb of, coming under the nice cover of Islamic radicalization. And in the recent past, a lot of terror attacks have taken place. As we can see that the intensity is very strong, and there are ferocious terror attacks, and local people are majorly involved in providing a support system to the terrorists. This is the reason why our security forces are not able to crack this new terror network in Kashmir. So, given this backdrop, it is evident and it is amply clear that the situation on the ground is not ready for the elections in Kashmir.
Exactly.
I'll discuss some other issues, fundamental issues, later in this video, in this discussion. But for your first question, I feel that yes, the situation is not right.
Vicky, Vicky, I just want to get your thoughts about this thing. That do you think that because there is such a decline in terrorist activities in Kashmir, that is why the government is okay with conducting elections there?
Akash, first of all, I would like to say that it's exactly not on the decline. In fact, if you see in the past couple of months, it's actually gone up.
Right.
And it's become a tougher challenge, considering that they are hiding in forests and things like that. Because of this issue, the intelligence, or I'd rather say actionable intelligence, is missing. This is why the operations are getting difficult. But they are working on it. And about the elections, I completely agree with Abhinav. Is that because you see the kind of the developments which are happening in Pakistan. An ex-ISI chief getting arrested. There are a lot of developments happening there. So there will be these tactics to divert attention from there, and And now when you have a political class which is coming in, I mean, I won't take names there, but who have openly spoken in favor of a Pakistan, and now they are going to be completely the police is going to be completely under the control of that state government. That is one thing.
Right.
And the thing is, once you lose your local police support, then they are the ones who actually get you the real actionable intelligence, and that is going to be missing if there is going to be political pressure all the time on their head. I mean, we have seen that happening in the past. So I think elections so soon is actually quite a bad idea, actually. And I don't think the government was ready for it, but it's coming on the backdrop of a Supreme Court order.
Exactly. So Abhinav ji, as you also mentioned that Engineer Rashid, he won the Lok Sabha elections. He is now an MP. So what kind of a sentiment does it show on the ground that on one hand the government is trying to portraying that the sentiment on the ground in Kashmir is very pro-India. It is not pro-Pakistan anymore because of the current situation in Pakistan. But the elections have definitely showed a very different kind of a face that what is the reality on the ground. As Vicky mentioned, that of course it could be a problem because the police is under the state government jurisdiction. So how will it help, or it will not help, or what kind of a situation we can see, as we have seen previously also with PDP and BJP alliance not working in the valley?
Well, let me put it at the outset. This whole idea of situation on the ground is pro-India and all that. This is a very this is like living in fool's paradise, and such thoughts emanate from your semi-literate, the intelligence officials and completely ignorant and stupid political class, who are not aware of how Islam functions. It's coming from those people. Basically, see, in the past, certainly, these. Definitely, see, it's a very fundamental fact that in any society which is overwhelmingly dominated by a Muslim population, they can, at a very basic and fundamental level, they can never be pro-India. This is my reading of the text. This is my reading of the Islamic society. They can never be pro-India. Whatever little pro-India sentiment prevailed, that was very conditional, and that was something which was more of a perception managed by intelligence agencies. Now, intelligence agencies would do that because you had a very idiotic political class, which had no clarity. So, what do you expect from the bureaucrats? Bureaucrats are smart, intelligent, and they would want to just manage the situation and just have a very peaceful tenure. That's what they did. Perception management. But after the abrogation of Article 370 and under this Modi government, which is a Hindu nationalist government, things are very clear and lines are clearly drawn. Now, definitely government cannot say that that they are trying to portray a very appeasement sort of a line. They cannot do that electorally. So
Right.
among the people in the common popular perception, they see the Modi government as a Hindu nationalist government and the new India as a Hindu extremist India. That's what their perception is. It is flawed, it is distorted, but they would like to believe so because that whole society is reeling under this extreme Islamic extremism. Now, secondly, this whole perception is certainly dominant now. Besides that, the international factors are also supporting Pakistan because we see that lately India-US relations have gone down the drain. So whenever there is a spike in Kashmir in terrorist activities, that happens only when Pakistan gets some sort of an assurance or a green signal from its global international Western friends. They cannot do it on their own accord.
Right.
Thirdly, in India also, in the rest of the India, the Indian hinterland, Muslim radicalization is going at a very rapid pace, because there's this Hindu-Muslim lines are very clearly drawn. So Pakistan sees this whole opportunity as a very, good chance, to up the ante of militancy and terrorism and create massive disruption in India. So Pakistan is going to up the ante of militancy. And unfortunately, we are still thinking in those archaic terms that, get the elections done, what is the sentiment, whether it is pro-India or not India. Well, these are all outmoded and completely useless terminology and useless definitions. They are not relevant anymore. These Supreme Court judges and, some of the politicians from the opposition who are trying to speak in these terms, they are not well read, let me tell you. Their research skills are very poor and they are not aware of the situation on the ground. This is a problem of the comprehension skills. I'm
Right.
not even I'm not even logically refuting their arguments because I don't find it worth refuting, because see, they are speaking an entirely different language. People who have even a very basic idea of the grammar of Islamic extremism, which is existent in Kashmir at the grassroots level, will speak in a different language. Now we're talking about elections. Tell me what kind of leadership, what kind of people you're going to get in the elections. Your same muftis have become like, they have become more poisonous after the abrogation of Article 370. Your
Correct.
same Abdullah's language which Abdullah is speaking, just a few days before he gave a statement, that reeks of like very strong anti-India sentiment. He's openly supporting Pakistan. Again, it's a language of blackmail. So what is the change that you see? Besides this, at the grassroots level, the sentiment has gone totally like, very towards these global Islamist movements. You see these hybrid terrorists who are white collar workers, and aiding and assisting militant organizations as common like civilians operating in a complete like open domain.
Right, right. Vicky, as Abhinav ji is saying that the situation on the ground is not that great as far as the ground reality is concerned, and of course it is not possible that the government doesn't understand this because you have people like Dowal and all who have been working and who have created a lot of
Can I
space.
just intervene?
Yes, yes,
Can
yes,
I
please.
intervene?
Yes, yes, Abhinav ji.
I think when we say that government understands these things, well, I think government doesn't understand these things, and let me put it at
Okay.
the outset. Whatever big names we are mentioning here, including the political class and the intelligence class, unfortunately, I have seen personally they are surrounded at the people who are of very average brains, and they don't have the good understanding of the situation.
Got it. But
I'm not
still,
mentioning specific names,
no,
but
no, I
there is a
totally
buzz
get
of
this.
getting
Yeah,
there is a buzz of getting Jamaat Islami in elections. I heard that Praveen Swami wrote some articles criticizing it. So whoever is advising the government to get Jamaat Islami in the elections, and
right.
what do you think of that person's assessment or brains? This is
Absolutely.
something which even Congress did not do. But back in 1987, that whole election rigging took place because Jamaat-e-Islami had floated its political front, Muslim United Front, and we didn't want them to come in the government. That's why
Right.
the so-called election rigging took place, and then Syed Salahuddin had to flee. Now today, if you get this very extremely poisonous Jamaat-e-Islami who has robust links with Muslim Brotherhood, okay,
Right.
what do you expect?
Absolutely, but Vicky, as Abhinav ji has said that okay, the government might not be aware or might be aware, but the situation, but of course there could be and time and again we have seen that there has been an intelligence labs. But can we afford to have such kind of elections where an anti-India sentiment heavy government can sit and in a very sensitive area?
No, I really don't think Jammu Kashmir is ready for an election, Akash. Not at all. Because you know what? I think there's a 99.99% chance that whatever effort has been put in, to get some amount of semblance in the Union territory is also going to fade away if these muftis and Abdullahs again. I mean, which is most likely going to happen. I mean, I would say 100% it is going to be one of them. We're going to come there. I think it's just just giving up a lot of hard work and okay. I mean we could pin the blame. I mean definitely Supreme Court does not understand these things. Basically, that is one thing. Or I don't think the government has really put forth that case so strongly that Supreme Court needs to understand. Supreme Court will only go by the book, the Constitution, democratically elected government, etc., etc., etc. But the thing is, it's a bordering state. That is one thing which has always been very problematic. And of course, as Abhinav ji pointed out, I mean, do you want a Jamaat Islami, being there at the helm at the end of it? Then it looks more of a Turkey rule out there, basically. And then with this influx of this Islamic State now, and the problem in Afghanistan, problem in Pakistan, and things like that, and of course, problem on the other side of the neighborhood that is in Bangladesh now. I think it's going to be a very, very chaotic situation. I'm not at all optimistic about the election.
And Abhinav ji and Vicky, both this question goes out to both of you. I will ask Vicky to start, and then Abhinav ji can also join in. How difficult are going to be the times for our security guys on the ground, as we have seen their hands are currently full with what kind of situation is there on ground, Every second day there is an army operation. Every day we are losing our boys over there. But still, the government is persistent. The administration is persistent of doing an elections over there. How difficult are the coming times for the security forces in Jammu and Kashmir? Vicky, you start, please.
Yeah, it's been very difficult because you know what had happened. You know, one of the reasons for this terror attacks just to shoot up is that we had put in a lot of deployment, on the Chinese border. That is one thing because of
Right.
that. So, a lot of them had to be brought back, and then now they're against Assam rifles and things like that. And now at least one thing, let me tell you, Akash. The thing is, we'll leave that for another day. You know the way the Hizbul Mujahideen was handled. It's literally a no show today. That is one thing, and began with the killing of Buran Wani. And the thing is, if you notice that one period where they put out this list, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 10 people with precision are gunned down by the security forces, and that is a lot to do with that concrete and intelligence, which is given by the local police. And this was once told to me by I would call him a mentor for me, C.D. Sahai sir, the former Raw chief. He had told me, if you don't have the local police on your side, there is no point in going for the battle, because it'll be a similar situation like how the underworld operated in Mumbai, where the cops, one central beam reaches and then the local police strips them off and things like that. And now once a political class comes, it is going to be under the Home Ministry, and how much is the DG going to listen to the central forces and things like that. So you're basically just wiping out one layer of intelligence, because a Jammu Kashmir constable knows who lives in which house, where, what time, what is he eating, what is it. This is the level of intelligence you need. It's not all about sitting in front of the system, cracking codes or something like that. This is human actionable intelligence is what we are going to miss out on if the police force in Jammu Kashmir is going to be under a elected government now.
Right. Abhinav ji, what do you think about this? That how tough
Yes.
are going to be the times for the security forces post elections?
We are standing at a very, very critical juncture. Let me tell you, the militants who are coming into Kashmir these days, they are not ordinary militants of the past. They are extremely, they're very highly trained with sophisticated understanding of advanced machinery and everything, and also the guerrilla tactics and all. And I suspect that the Turkish paramilitary organization Sadat is also actively involved in training these militants. And this is a very new sort of a militancy and that we are witnessing in Kashmir. It has a lot of international actors like Turkey and allegedly Azerbaijan. There's a possibility. I'm not saying that it's confirmed, but yes, definitely recent reports and recent, some informal sources have suggested that Turkey may be very actively involved. Secondly, we have basically very zero human on the ground because of certain very foolhardy actions that were taken after the abrogation of Article 370. We have lost that human network. Basically, after the abrogation of Article 370, the state police brought all these young officers, mostly from the Ajmut cadre, and they had no experience of working on the ground in Kashmir, so they could not cultivate or nurture that that human network. Basically, the police leadership had a very different thoughts that you have to have people who are totally on your side, and this double agent system doesn't work, and all those things. And these young fellows who had no understanding of the ground situation in Kashmir could not cultivate or continue that human network,
Right.
because Kashmir is a very complex state and you need a very strong understanding. Now, definitely the situation is so bad that we are acting in blind. Every day you see that that operations are taking place and officers are dying in the operations.
Right.
There's a very heavy officer casualty. One militant dies, and at the same time you have officers dying. Okay, because there's a good ground support for the militants. I feel that in the future, what Pakistan will do is that they will try to, just stage a heavy influx of such highly trained, militants, very advanced with advanced guerrilla tactics. They'll get highly trained militants in Kashmir who will have all this advanced equipment, training, and an operational command directly from Pakistan. At the same time, they will try to organize a massive social unrest because of this prevailing alienation among the people. So
Right.
just imagine a lethal cocktail of a massive social violent unrest on the streets, and these hardcore terrorist commanders and leaders, with all these advanced weaponry. what can you do? Like, and it will be a major embarrassment, disaster for the government of India, because because of the civilian involvement, they will not be able to use their forces in an indiscriminate manner. But because, and on the other side, because of the presence of these highly trained militants, there will be massive casualties on the military side also. So this is a very serious problem that we are going to face in the future. Ideally speaking, after the abrogation of Article 370, we should have done, we had a good chance to work on eliminating and rooting out this terrorist infrastructure and ecosystem which has emerged in Kashmir. And
Right.
it was a big foolhardy, thing to assume that just one decision of abrogating Article 370 has finished all this militancy ecosystem. See, Pakistan has made an investment for 30, 35 years. You cannot eliminate, you cannot completely neutralize that system just with a one signature or with one little decision. You need constant efforts. So at this stage, no elections needed. What you need is a very complete roadmap for Kashmir for next 20 years, how to crack, how to eliminate and dismantle this militancy infrastructure. And that will need some good hard measures. Government should be ready for that.
Absolutely. We hope that the government do take these hard steps, what Abhinavji is talking about. But hopefully, let's see how do the elections, first of all, go, and we keep our fingers crossed that there is little to no, violence as far as when the elections in Kashmir take place. But because Abhinavji, you are also here, I just want to also touch upon the issue of Bangladesh, and because me and Vicky have, extensively discussed about the situation in Bangladesh, I just want to get your insight about. Did you see the writing on the wall? Because Vicky said that the writing was on the wall that Bangladesh is going to collapse and everything. I just want to understand what is your whole thinking about what all has happened in Bangladesh. Did you see it coming? How Sheikh Hasina had to flee the country, the kind of violence that we see, the kind of anti-Hindu sentiment on the ground in Bangladesh.
Uh, well, what happened in Bangladesh? That's not a civilian revolt. That's a regime change, facilitated, orchestrated by the major involvement of international forces, and supported by the local elements. So now, see, I'm an outsider, a civilian, so I'm not privy to the confidential information, which is a strict prerogative of the intelligence agencies. But being an outsider, I can say that this is a major intelligence failure of India. Now, whether the Indian agencies had no idea about it, there could be two things. Either they had no idea about it, which is slightly difficult to believe. But if that is the case, then it is an even bigger embarrassment. Or secondly, which is more probable, is that they knew the situation, they had an idea, they reported things to Delhi, and the political leadership in Delhi took things very casually, or these things were just taken as a routine intelligence report system, something like that. But then, whatever has happened in Bangladesh, that's a major threat, security threat for India, because this was totally orchestrated at the behest of some of the international forces. Sheikh Hasina has already indicated that if she had given the Saint Martin Island to a prominent Western country, she
Right.
would have survived as a president. Now, but that the prominent Western country didn't want that. Didn't want a president, a prime minister who was not ready to toe its line. So definitely, the person had to get removed. There are ample evidences that the American ambassador was meeting with the opposition leaders, and then Pakistan also got majorly involved with Jamaat-e-Islami and Islamic Chhatra Shivir. Now these Jamaat-e-Islami and Islamic Chhatra Shivir, they are not like any random innocent organizations. They have robust linkages with terrorist organizations like Huji, and some of these Islamic Chhatra Shivir cadres have been trained in Afghanistan. So
Okay.
they are typical terrorist organizations, and Jamaat-e-Islami was an organization which was with the Pakistani army during 1971, and they are responsible for the massacre of Bengali civilians and innumerable Hindus in 1971. A lot of them have been tried for war crimes, and a good number of them are residing in Western countries and enjoying a good life. If they come back to Bangladesh, had it been Sheikh Hasina government, they would have been executed.
Right.
So this is an international plot, but then this is going to enhance India's threats, because even in the past, when BNP government was in power with Jamaat-e-Islami support, we saw that Bangladesh had become a major route for all anti-India activities. All these guys like Masood Azhar and Sajjad Afghani, they entered India through Bangladesh. Even this IC-8 Singapore conspiracy was hatched. No, I mean, it has its roots in Bangladesh. It was the trial run was given in Bangladesh, and it was a major route for sending militants to India, fake currency, illegal immigrants, refugees. So it's going to be a big headache. All your northeastern rebel groups and insurgent groups will find safe havens in Bangladesh. So I mean, that's all I have to say. We can go on and on, but I mean, this is a brief of short.
Exactly, exactly. And of course, so we will definitely want Abhinav ji to, once again be on the podcast and extensively, share his insight about what has happened in Bangladesh. And of course, it was just a small trailer as we discussed a little bit of it, because the situation over there is not getting any better. Though the interim leader over there had a conversation with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, we are not so sure what sort of discussions were these. Hopefully, there were, it was just a casual, political meeting in terms of introducing each other. That's all had to taken place. But yes, situation over there in Bangladesh is still very much volatile, especially for the minorities who are living over there. And then secondly, the thing that we had discussed earlier on the podcast is that Kashmir is nowhere ready as far as the ground reality is concerned for an election with such an uptick in the terrorist activities. But still, because there is a pressure from the judiciary, the Supreme Court had given a deadline, and the government, had to abide by it. They are going within elections, but we have to keep a very close eye on the results of these elections, and also to the run up to the elections, that what kind of comments come from the muftis and the Abdullahs and everybody else there on the ground. Well, that's all we had the time today on the podcast. Thank you very much, Abhinav ji, for joining me, and as always, thank you, Vicky, for joining me on the podcast.